sure don't seem too freaked out about all this, kid. What you doing out there all by yourself anyway?
Exploring the world.
Sounds fun. But why stop at one world when we can show you all of them?
I am the Watcher. I am your guide through these vast new realities. Follow me and dare to face the unknown. And ponder the question, what if?
Give me the tour.
Welcome back, everyone. This is my new Marvel What If trailer video. We also have some more details about what they're doing with the series and this new version of the Multiverse Avengers that it seems like the Watcher is assembling from across all kinds of different realities. So we'll break it all down. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs. Pretty safe bet that it's going to wind up being the craziest series coming during Marvel Phase 4. I will be doing all the episode videos for this summer when it drops after the Loki series. This is coming right after Loki. There'll be 10 episodes of this, so it'll be one of the longer Marvel series, and it's going to get multiple seasons for obvious reasons. When you're talking about theoretical situations, what if zombie Captain America? What if a version of Ultron assembled all the Infinity Stones and became a living Infinity Gauntlet? That is actually one of the episodes that they're doing. You could do hundreds of episodes of this series before you burn through all the really good ideas. So we'll talk about the new previews and the new footage that we got, then I'll talk about the Multiverse Avengers that they're putting together. They're calling the team the Guardians of the Multiverse, so you may have seen promos or teasers of this floating around the internet. It's basically where they're taking the What If series. They're taking it way beyond the concept of the original comic book. The original What If series was mostly just a bunch of one-off stories, like what if Wolverine had fought Thanos during Avengers Endgame? What would that have looked like? But then typically in the comic book, they wouldn't continue that storyline. It would just be one issue of that comic book, and then in the next issue, it would be a completely different character in a completely different reality, a different scenario. So just based on the idea that they're putting together this multiverse team of alternate versions of all these characters, it sounds like there's going to be a serialized narrative, and probably by season 2, they'll change the paradigm of the show, and it'll be more about the team going around to different realities. But the brand new stuff that we just got a little while ago were new looks at this version of Iron Man. It's not clear which reality he's from. The footage of Iron Man in the trailer is from the events of Iron Man 2 inside the Giant Donut, which is an actual place in Los Angeles that I've been to. You can actually go buy donuts there. There's not a ton of footage of him there, and obviously he doesn't speak during the trailer, so we don't know who's going to be voicing the character. I'm assuming that Robert Downey Jr. would come back to do his character, but I think when they were working on this series, working on the actual episodes, they were still trying to figure out a new deal with him to come back and do that. We got new looks at this version of Iron Man with a brand new Iron Man armor suit that's way more cosmic, way more hardcore. We just saw a version of Gamora in full Thanos armor from Avengers Endgame wielding Thanos' double-bladed sword from Avengers Endgame, so it seems like they're implying that this version of Gamora either becomes Thanos or replaces Thanos after probably killing him. That was part of the pitch of the character at the beginning of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, like she was the model daughter that Thanos favored over Nebula because she was so hardcore. With a character like that, you can go either one of two ways. Obviously, the way we saw her go was she rebelled against Thanos, joins the Guardians of the Galaxy, and became a fundamentally good character. But the other path you would take that story would be her becoming even more hardcore and judging Thanos, eventually killing him and taking his throne. There's a slightly different version of the Collector. He actually shows up in the trailer too, so it's this same version of the Collector. I'm assuming this is also during the Guardians of the Galaxy footage, because there is a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy and Black Panther crossover footage. There's another picture of this new version of Loki who seems like he was more successful in taking over Earth just because he's wearing that same armor from the first Avengers movie, is it seems like he's marching in with them to address the United Nations. Then, like I mentioned earlier, there's this new version of Ultron, what seems like all 6 Infinity Stones embedded in his armor, the most powerful form Ultron has ever taken. Like he becomes a living Infinity Gauntlet because he's been able to integrate all the Infinity Stones into his programming in his body. And obviously this looks like a much further upgraded version of his body from what we saw during Avengers Age of Ultron. The whole idea is that he was going to put himself into Vision's body, so he would have looked like Vision, he would have just sounded like Ultron. I also love that he's got this polearm weapon that looks really cool, and the cape, as if he would need an actual weapon. Even without the Infinity Stones, he's a living weapon. He can make any weapon that he would need. He doesn't need to carry one around. And because he has the Infinity Stones in whatever's happening during this Ultron episode, he's basically the most powerful living weapon in the universe. So it's a little funny to see him walking around with a weapon. It'd be like seeing Galactus wield a giant sword. Like, you don't need a sword, you wield the power cosmic. Then you've probably seen this promo art of the Multiverse Avengers team, the Guardians of the Multiverse as they're calling them. You could also make a reference to the Guardians of the Galaxy, like Guardians of the Galaxy, but make it from the multiverse. Based on the way they're presenting this, just in frame, it seems like Uatu helps bring the team together and guides them. It seems like they're implying Peggy Carter, Captain Britain, leads this version of this team, the same way that Captain America Steve Rogers leads the regular Avengers. Then you have Black Panther Star-Lord, who just seems like a way more chill version of the MCU version of Black Panther, a version of Black Widow. Not really clear what's different about her during the What If series. We haven't seen any trailer footage of her yet. It just seems like she's an alternate version of Natasha Black Widow. I think maybe this is the idea that she didn't die during the events of Avengers Endgame, because whichever reality she comes from probably just didn't experience the events of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. There's a version of Killmonger. He's wearing his same armor from the Black Panther movie. It's not clear what else is different about him. I mean, he has this really hardcore look on his face. And it's not clear if he also comes from that same Black Panther Guardians of the Galaxy episode where a young version of T'Challa winds up going with the Ravagers. He could come from another episode. I'm just assuming for now he's associated with the Black Panther episode. There's that version of Gamora. It's probably the same version of Gamora that became Thanos or replaced Thanos. There's this new version of Thor that some other promo art was calling the party version of Thor, so I don't know if they're just calling him Party Thor or what else is different about him, but it seems like this version of Thor is from the events of the first Avengers movie because he's got that same armor, he's still got Mjolnir, so wherever he's coming from, he hasn't experienced the events of Ragnarok yet. Then there's this version of Doctor Strange that we saw during all the trailer footage. His robe seemed like a way darker version of his costume from the first Doctor Strange movie. Even his cloak of levitation is kind of black instead of red. And if you look at some of the footage, there's a lot of Doctor Strange footage during this. He seems like a way more disheveled version of himself, and there's a lot of different footage of him going through a lot of the same beats from the first Doctor Strange movie. Like, he finds the sanctum, he sees all these mystical things, there's this giant library that he starts learning magic from. But then you see this evil shadow version of himself seemingly rise up, and he winds up fighting a version of himself amidst this crumbling reality. Like, you see the visage of New York behind him, this big landscape that seems like it's been eaten by another dimension. But then for whatever reason, it seems like this darker version of Doctor Strange, who's just freaking out all over his trailer footage here, darkest timeline Doctor Strange, is then fighting what looks like the regular version of Doctor Strange in a costume that seems much more akin to his regular MCU costume. So the fact that they're saying that this version of Doctor Strange, the darker version, winds up on the Guardians of the Multiverse team, this Multiverse Avengers group, makes it actually sound like he's the protagonist of this episode, and whatever's going on with his reality crumbling around him, he winds up fighting the regular version of Doctor Strange. The trailer footage can be very misleading just because it's meant to be as crazy as possible, and whatever his character arc, he could just be driven to a darker place after the events of what happens during the episode. And just to explain Killmonger coming back, so this is Michael B. Jordan who's going to be doing the voice for this. They're getting pretty much all the MCU actors from the live-action movies to come back and do the voices for the animated versions of their characters. So Michael B. Jordan already came back and recorded dialogue as Killmonger for this alternate universe version of Killmonger. But a lot of people have been asking him about coming back in Black Panther 2, and obviously they just made the big reveal. The title of Black Panther 2 is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So when you hear Michael B. Jordan is already coming back to do more Killmonger, you have to remember that it's actually for an alternate universe version of the character for this Marvel What If series in future seasons of What If, because it sounds like he'll be back in season 2 as part of this larger team of Multiverse Avengers. The really cool thing about the What If series, though, is that it gives you an idea for what the MCU is going to be doing in, say, like 7 or 8 years. Because we've all been talking about them building up to an Avengers Secret Wars movie way down the road. Like, it's such a big concept that it would take them a long time to build up to something like that. Many different versions of all the different characters in live action. It's a very Rick and Morty approach to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which also consequently is kind of what they're doing during the Loki episodes. I'll be doing videos for all those episodes in a couple weeks when it starts. What'll probably happen though is that the What If episodes will wind up starting after the Black Widow movie is released in July, so maybe like a late July release for the series, and it'll run for 10 weeks. I don't know when season 2 is supposed to be released. I'm assuming next year sometime. But everybody, let me know in the comments, if they're doing a Multiverse Avengers story across multiple seasons, who else do you want to see on that team, and which alternate versions of the characters do you want them to include? There's been a rumor that there's going to be a Venom 2 trailer coming sometime next week. If there is, of course, I'll totally do a video for it, but be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of those videos. You can click here for my brand new Doctor Strange 2 WandaVision deleted scene video and alternate ending that we just learned about, and you can click here for my last big Venom 2 teaser trailer video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.